The U.S. Defense Secretary admits he has no concrete evidence of a chemical attack in the Syrian city of Douma, but doesn't rule out a preemptive strike against Damascus.
This is a unique, exceptional country. Russia is unique, but not exceptional.
That's America's future top diplomat explaining exactly why Washington has the right to pursue regime change in other countries. And also this hour, British football fans rise above the political discord to enjoy a European Championship match in Moscow. RT follows one prominent Arsenal fan's trip to Russia.
Wow, I mean, I'm liking Moscow already. And we've been worried about coming here because of political tension. But actually, it's all right. It's all right. There's no tension between us. It's politicians. Let the politicians get on with it.
This is RT International coming to you live from Moscow with me, Jacqueline Vuga. Welcome to the program. The U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis says America has the right to carry out a preemptive strike on the Syrian government to defend its troops. He also admitted, though, that there was no clear evidence that chemical weapons were used in an attack in the city of Douma last weekend.
I believe there was a chemical attack, and we're looking for the actual evidence. The OPCW, this is the Organization for the Chemical Weapons Convention. We're trying to get those inspectors in. If we get them in, we will not know who did it. They can only say that they found evidence or did not.
Donald Trump initially seemed determined to strike Damascus, but then backtracked. The White House says no final decision has been reached. But as Igor Zdanov explains, fears are growing over the situation in Syria, as a lack of evidence didn't prevent the U.S. from starting a full-scale war in the past.
We're looking very, very seriously, very closely at that whole situation, and we'll see what happens, folks. We'll see what happens.
The drum of war is beginning to bang in Washington, and the beat is for Syria. The U.S. is again accusing President Assad of using chemical weapons on his own people. But the basis for this conviction appears to be lacking one crucial aspect.
We're not engaged on the ground there, so I cannot tell you that we had evidence.
Well, something is better than nothing, but right now it's just a feeling behind a possible military attack. Is it enough to risk escalating into a war with Syria's allies and even a nuclear standoff? Apparently, yes.
Protection of our forces, I don't think we have to wait until they're under chemical attack when the weapons are used in the same theater we're operating in.
The Iraqi invasion played out along suspiciously similar lines.
We must take the battle to the enemy. We will take every step necessary to make sure our country is secure, and we will prevail. The Iraqi regime has, in fact, been very busy enhancing its capabilities in the field of chemical and biological agents.
One difference that jumps out is that with Iraq, the U.S. had that infamous bottle of anthrax as reason to call on its forces. In hindsight, it was a completely false pretext, and with Syria, they don't even have that. The OPCW, the UN chemical watchdog, the height of judgment when it comes to such cases, already vouched 2 years ago that Syria's stockpiles were no more. Roll on to 2018, and their word seems to matter little for Washington. That is another similarity with the Iraq invasion.
And one must keep in mind the history of UN inspection teams in Iraq. Even as they were conducting the most intrusive system of arms control in history, the inspectors missed a great deal.
And in my last attempt to enlarge the membership of the organization was convincing Iraq and Libya, for example, to join in. And when I announced this to member states, it was a shock to the Americans, I believe, because they had plans already to take some action, military action against Iraq.
The bottom line is the Pentagon is hardly keeping its lack of evidence on whether the attack even happened a big secret, never mind the perpetrator behind it. All that matters, sticking to the tried and trusted path.
The problem is that the United States believes and acts as it would be, as it is above any law. They believe that they have their own rules, and it is not the case. The threat to use force, a unilateral action, That goes against the United Nations Charter. And also we are concerned about the possibility of escalation, and that this could go out of control, and we might end up with a wider conflict than the one that's already been suffered in Syria. It will not be an attack against Syria, but also an attack against the whole United Nations system.
Britain has also been contemplating possible military strikes against the Syrian government, but against expectations, the UK Prime Minister didn't announce any action. That's after polls revealed how little appetite the British public has for war.
Do you think military strikes in Syria will help solve anything?
Hell no. I don't know, it's just a whole mess at the moment. Well, I'd be very anxious about any kind of military intervention. What would it actually achieve?
I really disagree with military action against anything happening in Syria. There's already enough fighting going on there as it is, and there's a real danger of war escalating way beyond what we expect.
It's narrow and well targeted. Could send an important signal. If it's pushed up, no, it's a bad signal.
Military intervention never helps anything. I think we have that empire attitude where these countries have these problems, have these civil wars, and we try and go in and fix it. When we had our civil war, when the Americans had their civil war, nobody went and bombed us, and we got this society we have now. They need to go through this on their own.
The last time Britain was considering getting involved in Syria, there was a debate in Parliament, and Parliament voted against it. That was very bad news for the then Prime Minister, Cameron. But the idea that we should be getting involved in wars in the Middle East without Parliament being able to debate the issue and make a decision is absolutely outrageous. And I think it's because she knows there is very little public support for us getting involved in the Middle East again. We all remember, everyone in Britain remembers, we were lied to by our government and the American government when we were told that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. The result was hundreds of thousands, I think nearly 1 million dead. Many of our own troops lost their lives as well, and it all turned out to be based on a lie.